Here in America, Mercedes-Benz certainly has a plethora of different SUVs to choose from. In fact, around 6 years ago, the company introduced their newest baby SUV offering, the GLA class. Now, what started out as basically just a lifted version of an A-class hatchback in Europe quickly became a relatively good seller for Mercedes because of its entry-level price tag and diminutive size. So for 2021, as you can see, Mercedes-Benz has completely redesigned the GLA class. It's based off of the new A-class, which I've tested in A-class and CLA, and of course the GLB, which is the new boxier version of this basically same platform car. And you can see this week, Mercedes actually sent me over the GLA 35 AMG. So the new middle child equipped with a 302 horsepower turbocharged engine, standard 4MATIC plus all-wheel drive, and a quick shifting 8-speed dual clutch transmission. So if you guys are in the market for the latest GLA class, how does this new GLA 35 AMG stack up? Stay tuned to find out. So just like FCA with their Hellcat all the things philosophy, AMG has kind of been on a binge to kind of AMG everything in the Mercedes-Benz lineup, including adding a new middle child in their entry-level division, the GLA 35 or the 35 engine, which, as you guys know, I've tested in the A-Class and in the CLA as well, is a nice middle ground between what enthusiasts are looking for and if you're also on a budget and can't necessarily stretch out to a 45 model. You can see under the hood of the GLA 35, this is not the hand-assembled engine that you get on the 45 model. So instead, we have an uprated version of the 2-liter turbocharged direct injection 4-cylinder with a twin-scroll turbocharger. It is basically an AMG light model, a middle child model, and it's tuned to produce 302 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. That's essentially 80 more horsepower than what you get in the base 2-liter turbo that you can find in a GLA 250, which offers 221 horsepower. If you guys have another $9,000 to spend, you can of course go to the 45 model with its hand-built 2-liter turbo that offers 382 horsepower. Mercedes-AMG is not offering a GLA 45S version, which has it up-tuned again to around 416 horsepower in Europe, sadly. Now, the 35 model does come standard with their 4MATIC plus all-wheel drive system, which is nice because the base 250 comes standard with front-wheel drive, and your only transmission option is a 8-speed dual-clutch transmission. Mercedes-AMG says you'll get to 60 in around 5.1 seconds. You'll reach a top speed of 155 miles an hour, and fuel economy did go down. It's rated at 23 in the city and 29 on the highway, 25 combined. Premium gas is required on a vehicle like this, and even though this is an SUV, it is not rated to tow. Mercedes doesn't have any towing figures for this vehicle, and it weighs in at just over 3,600 pounds. Now, when it comes to the exterior design of the latest GLA class, remember, this vehicle competes with other subcompact SUVs that are essentially hatchbacks that have been lifted up to appeal to American consumers. I'm talking about cars like the BMW X1, the Lexus UX, the Audi Q3. However, the GLA has been a surprisingly big sales success. Mercedes started selling around 25,000 of these every year when the first generation came out. So for 2021, with the new version, you can see Mercedes kind of played it safe with the exterior design, but it definitely looks a little bit more appealing this year. Now, walking up to the front end of the GLA 35 model, you can see you can distinguish this as the AMG version from its unique grille. It has those vertical chrome slats with the AMG badge, of course, in the side of the grille, this big, massive 3-pointed star, which my tester is missing the driver assist package, so it doesn't have an actual radar sensor or cruise control sensor behind that actual star. The headlights, before you had to get an option package to get LED headlights. Now LED headlights are standard, which is nice. You can also upgrade the LEDs to be the adaptive kind. You have LED daytime running lights, LED turn signals, and then LED low beams. It looks like the high beams actually appear to be an incandescent design. Down here you can see some of the vents appear to be functional, but then other vents are fake vents. The AMG model kind of gives you a unique lower front splitter. You can also get a night package that'll black out a lot of the chrome and make this vehicle look a little bit more distinctive. In this white exterior color, I think the night package would probably make it look a little bit more appealing to me. Now, looking at the side profile of the GLA, you can see this is still a pretty small vehicle. Mercedes actually made it a smidge shorter this year at 174.3 inches long. Its wheelbase has been stretched by about an inch to around 104.7 inches long. And the big news about this new version is Mercedes actually made it around 4 inches taller. It's around 3.6 inches taller and about 1.5 inches wider. So again, it kind of gives it more of an appropriate SUV stance to it because it's a taller vehicle now. Going over to the wheel options, you can see these are the standard 19-inch wheels. Mercedes actually sent me the car with winter tires on it. These are probably one of the worst looking wheels I've seen on an AMG product. You do have choices, of course. You can go to a 21-inch wheel, and you can also black out the finish on this if you'd like. I really don't like the way these wheels looks, but that's a pretty quick change if you guys want to change out the wheels. You can see the AMG model gives you these upgraded brakes. These are a 14-inch rotor with a 4-piston caliper with cross-drilled rotors, which again are pretty nice size brakes for something that's this big. And remember, you can also choose this car's platform mate, the GLB, which they also offer as a GLB 35, but the GLA is actually the smaller offering. It's around 8 inches shorter than the GLB. But from certain angles, it really starts to look like a hatchback or a minivan. Now you can see my tester has an optional panoramic sunroof for $1,500. Some competitors make that as standard, not Mercedes. You have to pay extra for it. And from this angle at the rear, you can really see that it looks more like a hatchback. I'm not terribly in love with the design. The rear taillights, you can see, have a new look to them, where some people have told me in the comments that this car kind of looks like a Mitsubishi Outlander Sport, which is definitely an insult to Mercedes. I'm not really the biggest fan of all the cladding and how narrow and tall it looks. You can see some of the vents here in the rear are also fake. The rear bumper is completely black plastic, but at least the taillights are full LED. And then down here you can see two visible chrome piped exhaust tips. However, they are just an exhaust trim finisher. The actual exhaust is behind there, so it's not connected to the actual muffler of this exhaust system. When you open up the cargo area, you can see power liftgate is included, which is nice. And when you open this up, you get around 19.9 cubic feet of space. Fold down the second row seats, no third row is available, and you'll get around 50 cubic feet of space. That is a little bit more than last year, but it's around 12 cubic feet less maximum versus the GLB, which is the platform mate of this car. As for the interior of the new GLA, if you guys have spent some time in the new A-Class and the CLA, this is going to, of course, feel very familiar. Now, above me, you can see my tester has a panoramic sunroof, like I mentioned earlier, for $1,500. It does let in some nice light into this cabin, especially when you have this black interior with the gray stitching. The seats, these are just the standard seats. They are a 10-way power adjustment. You can option in a sport seat for around $3,000, which will change these out with kind of like Recaro looking style buckets. These are a little bit more plain, but you can also take your pick between a gray, a brown, and a red leather option. But looking at the door panel here, you can see the door panel looks pretty nice. You have some fake stitching or faux stitching with soft touch materials, the carbon fiber trim, which looks good, and some aluminum trim. When I shut the door has a relatively solid sounding thunk. Remember, this is based off of the A-Class, and you can see here, this interior just looks very, very modern and upscale. Mercedes has been killing it, of course, with their two displays here. These are the upgraded 10.25-inch displays. You have one here and one there for the infotainment system. This actually comes standard on the 35 model. It's optional on the 250. Here's the key fob for the vehicle. You can see this is the latest Mercedes key fob. It does say AMG on this model because this is the 35 version. The button to fire up the engine is right here in the usual place. But you can hear when the engine starts up, it doesn't really sound like much. Remember, this is still just a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder. I'll put the drive mode here into Sport Plus. You can hear the revs kind of go up just a smidge. Nothing really is coming out from the exhaust. What I do hear is a sound that's amplified through the speakers of this vehicle. So again, it's got that fake noise that some of you may not like. So we'll go out into the driving scene later. We'll talk about how it sounds out on the road. But overall, this cabin is just very, very impressive. I like the AMG specific steering wheel. This one here is a nice flat bottom design. It has some real aluminum trim, fat bolstering extension, good paddles on the wheel. Surprisingly, the wheel is not heated. You cannot get a heated steering wheel on this car, which would be nice. But this gauge display is interchangeable, where you could change the way this looks. This is the Super Sport design. I can also change, using this little touchpad here, I can also change what it shows on the inside there and kind of customize this to show attack or show your audio information. You can put your GPS information as well in there. I like the way this looks. It's very modern, it's very crisp, it's very easy to see. My tester is missing the heads-up display for $1,000. It would be nice to have that. You have this kind of empty area here. It's got a very low dash, which is nice. You can see the dash is a soft touch plastic with the faux stitching, like the carbon fiber. I love the interior accent lighting in this vehicle. You can see there's some accent lighting over here. It's on the door panels, and then the air vents also actually have interior accent lighting as well. It's a very beautiful looking cabin at night, with it also accentuated here on the center console. And you can also change the color of all this interior lighting, depending on your mood and whatnot. So Mercedes is doing a really good job with the interior of their vehicles, especially at night. You can see this is the latest version of their MBUX. It's not a touchscreen here, but this is a touchscreen right here. As you can see, the CarPlay, which is wired, it's not wireless, surprisingly. Doesn't take up the entire screen, but it frees it up so you can always access the home screen, of course, which when it looks like this is where it looks very, very impressive, especially for an entry-level car. My Tester is missing factory embedded GPS, so there's no GPS option here. But you can see there's an AMG performance mode that shows you, your consumption, your engine consumption, or what kind of power output it's putting out. You can change your dynamic mode selector here. You can adjust the individual settings. So this is all pretty easy to use, and you can use it as a touchscreen, which is the way that I found myself using it the most. You can also use this little touchpad here, or you can also use the touchpad here. So there's several different ways. You can also talk to it and just say, "Hey, Mercedes," and it'll start asking you what it needs. I actually have the feature turned off for now because it can get annoying when you're trying to film. But overall, this is pretty easy to use. It hasn't really changed. When I put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's the backup camera. No 360 camera is offered, I believe, but you can see this is what it looks like, and it has a very good resolution. I believe you can actually get the 360 surround view as part of a parking tech package that my Tester is missing. Not necessarily why you'd need it for something like this small, but Mercedes does one of the best cameras in the industry. Their shifter, as you can see, is right here where a turn signal or wiper stalk would be. Just kick it all the way down to drive, push it all the way up for reverse, push the end of the stalk to go into park, of course. Now down here you have dual zone climate control, which is nice. Nice high quality toggles and switches. Nice little area for your phone to go here. They do offer a wireless phone charging pad for $200, which my Tester is missing. Your seat controls are over here on the door panels, along with the carbon fiber 3-level heated seats. You can see there's a place for ventilated seats, which my Tester is missing. Window controls, windows are up touch automatic for all 4, which is nice. The switches don't feel quite as high quality as some of the higher end Mercedes models. They just aren't lined with metal, or they're not made of metal, and they're a little bit more plasticky feeling. The steering wheel itself, you can see, is manual tilt and telescoping, but it does offer a good amount of adjustability. I found myself getting comfortable in this car pretty easily. This touchpad here, of course, has a wheel for volume. You have your dynamic mode selector there, and then you have these shortcut buttons here to access the infotainment system. So many different ways you can interact with this. This is a nice little area where you can rest your palm. Your adjustable suspension is over here, along with your stability control switch and the manual mode for the transmission. This is nice and padded right here. You can see it offers a pretty good amount of space down there with another USB-C, 2 USB ports right here at the front. And then looking at the glove compartment here, you can see it's a pretty big size, actually. It's damped, but not lined with felt. And then these seats, they're pretty comfortable and supportive. They just don't hold you in place as much as the performance seats. So if you guys plan on doing a lot of aggressive driving, I'd recommend going with the optional seats. But overall, the interior is comfortable. It's relatively roomy. It barely sits up higher, but if you guys are looking for, again, a small SUV that gives you that higher seating position, the GLA is the one you're gonna wanna take a look at. Now, even though Mercedes didn't make this new one that much bigger on the inside, they did manage to improve the rear seat space because of that stretch in the wheelbase, and of course the increased height gives you more overall headroom. And getting back here, the company actually says you get around 38 inches of legroom back here, which is a lot, to be honest. I actually think this is a couple inches more versus the previous generation, and it's supposedly the same legroom that you find in the GLB, which is the bigger version of this car. But as you can see, getting back here, look at the legroom back here. I mean, I'm pretty impressed. At 5'7", I'm not the tallest, but lots of foot space underneath the front seats. The floor is not completely flat, which it should be, considering this is a front drive platform. You have rear seat air vents back here, a little bit of storage, and then your USB charging ports are down here, which is really nice. You have 2 USB-Cs and an actual 115-volt household plug right there, which is nice. In terms of the materials, they did carry over with the soft touch plastic with the faux stitching, aluminum accented door handles. No heated rear seats, though. You can't get that on this car because, remember, it's their entry-level model. You have 2 rear seat map pockets, which is nice. And surprisingly, no armrest here, although, actually, no, it is an armrest. It doesn't look like it, but you have to push this little button right here, and this folds down the ski pass-through. So it's not technically an armrest, but you could kind of use this as a makeshift armrest, although it's not very padded or soft on the back part of the seat back. So overall, the second row seat of the GLA is much more usable this year, but keep in mind that the company offers a bigger version of this car for not much more money. So around 5-6 years ago, Mercedes-AMG sent me over the GLA 45 AMG. It was the first time I ever really had a chance to experience the GLA class. And you guys know that this was the company's, or is the company's, smallest and least expensive SUV you can buy. However, nowadays you can also buy the GLB, which is essentially the same car, bigger on the inside and outside and boxier shape. I personally think the look of the GLB is probably what I would go for personally if I was going to buy an entry-level Mercedes SUV. But the first thing I'm noticing about this new GLA is, just like the new A-Class and CLA, Mercedes has really stepped up their game in their entry-level models. This car feels much more like a Mercedes. This new one rides almost 4 inches taller overall versus the old one. And I do get a sense that I'm sitting up higher a little bit, like I'm in an SUV. Although there's also elements about this car that makes me, again, still feel like I'm driving a hot hatch, because it's a very narrow car. They actually made it a smidge shorter this year. But in general, just driving the GLA 35, this is the AMG Light version, a new middle child between the 45 and the 250 model. And I have to say, there is definitely some amplification of noises in this new version, or in this 35 model. I don't love the way it sounds all the time. It's definitely creating some kind of a fake engine sound. And it doesn't have quite as many burbles and cracks as the 45 that I drove. Ooh. But I will say that it is quick. Mercedes-AMG says you'll get to 60 in 5.1 seconds, basically around 5 seconds. It'll reach a top speed of 155 miles an hour. This is plenty quick for most people, although it's not as quick as the new 45. That'll dash to 60 in around 4.3 seconds. It offers 80 more horsepower than this model. But I have to say, this is very, very impressive for what it is. And it does offer launch control. I'm going to go ahead and give the launch control a try here. Just put it into a sport dynamic mode here. Now, the launch control did not engage there, so I'll have to try it again later on. But you feel those shifts from that 8-speed dual clutch transmission. It's got an extra gear this year. Mercedes heard the criticism about their old 7-speed dual clutches, about them being garbage, and this new one is just far improved. Way more responsive, way snappier. The shifts are just brutal also. Like, using the paddles here, you can see it perfectly rev matches on your downshifts. And listen to when it shifts, burr, burr, like it just has those hot hatch noises that I love. So very much this car feels like a grown-up hot hatch. The hot hatch for adults, even though that distinctions kind of belong to a GTI or a Golf R, this is, you know, this has a Mercedes badge on it, so it definitely feels more like the hot hatch for grown-ups. Now, we do have a 4MATIC Plus all-wheel drive system that tries to send more power to the rear wheels to give it more of that rear drive feel. And you definitely notice the four-wheel drive system of this car helping to put the power down. There's little to no wheel spin, even though I've got winter tires on the car right now, because as you can see, there's snow all over the ground. The steering in the GLA 35 is just really responsive, communicative. Its ride quality is also not as horrible as the old generation. I mean, this is not the fullest 45 model, the full fat version, but I'm noticing even in Sport Plus with the adaptive dampers in their harshest setting, on pavement like this, it has a very smooth ride quality. The seats, these are the base seats. They don't hug you as much as the performance seats for another $3,700. I'd highly recommend that if you guys, you know, want a little bit more aggressive looking seats. These look a little bit more basic, but if you guys want, you know, the multiple colors like the brown leather, the gray leather, or the red leather, you have to go with these seats as opposed to the sport seats, which only come in black. They are heated, which are nice, and you're available with ventilated seats, but I wish this car offered a heated steering wheel. You cannot option that here in America. And in, you know, this 30-degree weather that I'm experiencing, it would be nice to have cooled seat or a heated steering wheel. Visibility is also pretty good. You can see out of it very well. Side mirrors are pretty good. My tester has their collision avoidance assist and blind spot monitor, which is extra. The adaptive cruise driver assistance features, my car is missing that feature, so I don't have adaptive cruise. I also don't have factory embedded GPS. That's part of a multimedia package that my tester is missing, which is, again, mine is a pretty lightly optioned model at $54,000. It is, you know, about $8,000 less than what you could spec this car up to be, which is just damn expensive. I mean, even at $54,000, this is pretty expensive, but I will say, even though this is an AMG light model, I'm noticing that it does drive and handle very nicely. And if you're coming from something like a Golf R, a WRX, a Civic Type R, this is going to feel really fun. It's going to feel a smidge more refined, it's a smidge quieter on the inside. and it's also just a more comfortable vehicle. I'm just not entirely sure it's, you know, very roomy inside here. I mean, here's my dilemma with the GLA. Like, now that the GLB is in the lineup, you can get a GLB 35, which is the same car as this, same chassis underneath, same platform, same powertrain. Mercedes claims 0 to 60 is also 5.1 seconds. But you get that boxier shape that I just think looks cool. It looks like a miniature, you know, G-Wagon or a GLK replacement, which is cooler than this kind of like hot hatch squished minivan look that the GLA gives you. But again, looks are always subjective. This is still a phenomenal car to drive that's easy to live with, it's easy to park. It is about 8 inches shorter than the GLB, so if you want something that's smaller, this is the one you're gonna wanna get. So let's try the launch control again here. All I have to do is put my foot on the brake, or put in Sport Plus, stability control into sport setting, foot hard on the brake, accelerate. Again, I'm not entirely sure it actually did launch control there. Usually it'll say race start. It did rev it up to around 2,000, but I'm not entirely sure it gave me the launch control there. With everything engaged, you should do 0 to 60 in like 5.1 seconds, like I mentioned. I can't really complain with how it accelerates. Very little to no drama. Plenty of speed. I mean, yes, you could spend more for the 45 model for another, you know, $10,000 basically. It gives you 80 more horsepower. But I think this is going to be plenty for most people. And it's definitely about as fast as the last X2 M35i that I drove. Although I do find the BMW to be the slightly better looking car. And I believe it's also slightly quicker if you look at 0 to 60 times. So after spending the week with the latest GLA 35, I'm pretty happy to say that just like the previous generation, I'm very impressed with how this vehicle drives. It's a really easy car to drive, a really easy car to live with. It has a decent amount of room on the inside. If you guys are essentially looking for a premium version of something like a Subaru Crosstrek or even a Mazda CX-30, this is going to, again, feel like a Mercedes product. They did a really great job on the interior. It rides and handles nicely. It has a quick shifting dual clutch, which is a huge improvement over the old one. And I think the 2-liter turbo in the 35 model is probably the sweet spot for a lot of people because they've priced it to be a little bit more affordable versus the 45, but it offers way more performance versus the 250 model. I'm just not entirely sure I'm sold on the looks of this car, especially from this angle. There are certain times where I looked at this car and I thought it looked okay, and then I looked at it from other angles like this angle and I think it looks a little bit eh. So if you guys were gonna look at this platform of vehicle, I'd probably say spend $2,000 more and go for the GLB 35 because I like the boxier shape. It gives you more space on the inside, more cargo capacity, similar performance, and not that much more money. Now, if you guys are looking to buy the GLA, you buy this car because you like the look and you like how it's a smaller vehicle. Remember, this is the smallest SUV the company makes, and it starts at around $36,250 for a base 250 model. Add a couple $1,000s if you guys want their 4MATIC all-wheel drive system. The 35 version is going to cost around $47,500. It's around $8,000 more, which is, again, pretty expensive, but look at its competitors. It's around the same price. My tester here, with the light amount of options that it has, stickers for a total of $54,000 with the panoramic roof and the upgraded displays on the inside. Keep in mind, if you guys add the driver assistance package, you add the black package, you add those upgraded seats, this car could easily be over $60,000, which is grossly overpriced at that point. But at this level, where it's a little bit more affordable, I think that it's under optioned. I think it needs a little more options in it to make this car feel more and more like a true luxury car. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2021 Mercedes-AMG GLA 35. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.